What's up, guys? Buckle up because you're about to enjoy an excellent Snaps game preview where we tell you everything you need to know about this weekend's game and probably some stuff that you didn't. Enjoy to the big boy. That's right. This is what Aaron's talking about. This is what everybody has been waiting on all year long. UGA, Texas. And it's a fascinating game narratively. UGA's almost final stand versus Texas's big chance. A battle of former Saban prodigies on opposite sides of the ball. That's one little twist that I love, right? Former Saban prodigies, even though maybe unfair to call Sark, he's more of a rehab project, but still a guy who both guys learned directly from him, now appear to be the ones in line to inherit the crown. Kirby Smart doing it defensively, Sark doing it offensively. Kirby Smart looked like he was the unquestioned heir to the throne. Then Daddy comes back, gets him in the SEC last year. All of a sudden, looking pretty shaky this year, as we'll get into with the stats and whatnot. And so a lot. Oh, and then so as Kirby Smart is losing last year's SEC championship, losing this game, Texas has been riding a rocket ship of money to the top. And so I cannot wait for this game. And this will prove whether or not, because after Ohio State loses, Texas kind of the last man standing in terms of unblemished record, maybe the prohibitive favorite dominant team in the entire country that everybody's playing catch up to. This will prove if they fall this weekend, then literally everything is wide open.
Yeah. I was trying to go in go through this position by position, because that's when teams are this close, you kind of feel like, okay, where's one team have an advantage over the other? And, I would say like quarterbacks is even, Quinn, Carson, two of the premier pocket quarterbacks in all of America. They're not runners. They're truly pocket quarterbacks. But then you look at the rest of the offense and it's heavy favor to Texas. Texas O-line is playing better. Texas's receivers significantly better. The running back position better. Defensive backs. Texas is unproven, but right now are playing at a higher level than Georgia. And then front seven's kind of a wash between the two. So like it is, we don't know yet for Texas because they haven't played anyone, but as of right now, position by position, to me, Texas seems like the better team. So then you do look at the head coaches. Who do you believe more in? Do you believe more in Kirby? Do you believe in Sark? Is the gap that big or is it close? Is it close enough where Sark's not that far behind Kirby to where the advantage of all these players makes a difference? So it's a fascinating game. There's a ton of angles. And but I'll tell you this, like roster-wise right now, I think Texas has the better roster.
So I hadn't really considered who I believe in more out of Kirby and Sark. It's crazy because, you know me. I used to call him Fartkesian. Fraudkesian, excuse me.
Well, so you love to just poops and farts with coaches' names.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
I'm not a very lowbrow humor. You know the show, dude. But the bottom line is this is a man that I did not believe in at all. And so if you had asked me that question last year, I would have laughed in your face. But now as you ask it, I'm like, I don't know. Who do I believe more in? Maybe I believe more in Sark for this game because I think Texas looks like the better team on paper. Maybe I believe in Sark because he's doing it on the offensive side of the ball while Georgia's trying to do it on the defensive side of the ball. And defensively, they're not like that dominant actually this season. It's an interesting question. How about this on the receivers though, real quick? I wasn't planning on starting here, but you mentioned that Texas has an unquestioned advantage at receivers. And I kind of agree, right? Like I thought so as well, but here are, and let me see if I can zoom in on this for the people at home. Here are the two receiving room stats put up next to one another, and they're not actually that. It's kind of interesting. But
you can't compare stats when one team was down by 28 points and had to throw the ball 40 plus times, and then Georgia had to do the same thing last week. Like Texas was without Ewers for 3 games. Had a dual threat quarterback that was running it, was never trailing, never the need to throw the football. So, like, I don't think you can just throw out stats in this one and be like, oh, they're close to each other. Like, they've had 2 very different seasons and needing to do different things.
Okay, look, that's why I asked you, right? That's a good explanation. But do you see these numbers? Like, can you see these on your screen right now? Like,
I see them. Yeah.
the yards per game are nearly identical. The catches are nearly identical. The kind of spread among them. Like, I feel you that Texas hasn't really had to stress these guys too much. Which that begs a bigger question. How would you interpret Texas's schedule thus far? Obviously, Georgia has the Alabama game. None of the other games really do anything for me in terms of Kentucky, Auburn, Mississippi State. In fact, they're probably more on the disappointing side than anything else. How do you determine what Texas has done this season?
To me, it's been all the eye test. It's like, what do they look like? And you can kind of judge it based on that. And they've looked like the best team in college football. Going into Ann Arbor, no matter what we believe in Michigan, it's still an impressive win. That's still a very good defense. And they made it look easy against Michigan. Very easy. They made it look easy.
Yeah.
They made it look easy with a backup quarterback, which tells you the talent that's on that roster that they could win and win in the fashion they did, even without their starting quarterback. Because, like, I get the difference between them and UTSA and UL Monroe and Mississippi State, still significant roster-wise. But still, when you have a backup quarterback playing in those games, and yeah, Arch is really good, but the talent on that roster is to the point where it's not that big of a difference, even with your backup quarterback in there. Because I do think there's a gap between yours and Manning right now when it comes to where they are in their career. This is a dominant roster. This isn't a roster with a lot of holes. Where did Texas struggle last year? They struggled in the secondary. This was a team that couldn't stop the pass. They got guys in the transfer portal. They think it's fixed. We think it's fixed, but we still don't know yet. They have not faced one team that can throw the football consistently.
Yeah.
So if they go out there and stop Georgia's passing attack, and you just showed the stats, and they limit them, then there's no doubt in my mind that this team's the heavy favorite to win the national championship. But hell, Georgia may go out there and expose them and throw it for 400 yards and go off, and then we question what they look like, just like we did Ohio State and the amount of yards they gave up versus Oregon a week ago. So Texas still has a lot to prove, but just based on eye test alone, they look pretty damn good on both sides of the football. And you know how I feel about Sark. Sark is right now the best offensive mind in all of college football. There's no one calling offensive plays better than Steve Sarkisian at the moment.
Okay. So I in terms of interpreting Texas schedule, I think I agree with you, right? Because Colorado State, Michigan, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, that's not nothing, but they did handle Mississippi State better than Georgia did, even with the backup quarterback. And while it's not nothing, they still beat that not nothing by a combined 152 to 28. God, it's okay. Here's
I think the other big thing, the other big discussion has to be, this will be Texas's, unless somehow they're just that much better than Georgia. This will be their first 4-quarter game. Georgia's had 2 battles against top 10 teams. They went toe-to-toe with Clemson and ended up winning that game significantly. And they went toe-to-toe with Alabama and Tuscaloosa. Like, they've been pushed
and they had a 4-quarter game against Kentucky.
And
so they've been in 3 of these dust-ups. Like, they know what it's like to be.
And all 3 of them have been outside of Sanford Stadium. I know one was in a neutral site and is mostly Georgia fans in Atlanta. I get it. Say all you want about it, but still, like, all 3 of those games were not between the hedges. They were in Kentucky, in Tuscaloosa, and in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So, like, they've had to go on the road into a hostile environment and find ways to be competitive and find ways to win 2 of them, and then one almost have the greatest comeback in Georgia history.
And so it is interesting, Aaron, because we've seen a lot of teams, I feel like recently, that made a lot of hay early on by beating up on lesser teams. And we would do lines like with Tennessee, right? Like, I get they haven't played anybody, but they look so perfect not playing anybody that it's hard to see that it won't translate. Only it hasn't translated at all.
Yep.
And so objectively, Georgia is way more tested, way more fleshed out than is Texas right now. Like, will this be Texas's Ole Miss, Kentucky moment, where it's your first real test, you get punched in the mouth, do you fold? I mean, obviously, I think they're stronger than that, but like, I guess here's the disconnect for me, is that on paper, Texas looks like a pretty massive favorite.
Yep.
This is a stats of war breakdown from Football Outsiders. All these numbers are, look, blue is good, red is bad, but it just shows you comparatively how the two teams compare. And as you can see, all advanced statistics, if you look on the right side of your screen here, Texas is damn near the top of everything. I mean, top 10 in basically every stat. Georgia's still very good, but some flaws, right? Like their rush success rate, not that good, 72nd in the entire country. Their defensive pass success rate, they call it dropback success rate, defensive dropback, it's 87th in the country, right? Whereas Texas is pretty much ones across the board. But is that a function of schedule, or is that actually indicative of the team? Also, look at these numbers.
You know what's crazy too, just stats? I don't know if it's on there or not. Georgia is 15th in the SEC in sacks. Only 11 sacks for Georgia.
I actually, don't worry, I have that written in the notes. We're gonna get we'll get more to traditional stats in a minute. This is just like whatever, an advanced analytical.
I'm just saying, like even with the advanced stats right now, as a Georgia fan, what part of the defense is kicking ass at the moment?
Yeah,
there really isn't. Like you said, like this is a battle of like Steve Sarkisian offensive mind and then Kirby Smart defensive mind. But to me, as someone who obviously I watch Georgia very close, I watch every single one of their games. There is not a defensive position right now that is dominating. Defensive line's not dominating. They're not getting after the quarterback. You know, CJ's playing great at linebacker, but the secondary's been abysmal besides Malachi. Like all three units are not playing well, and they haven't played well.
Yeah, I mean, look at the defensive success rate is 65th in the country. Against the run, it's 57th. Against the pass, it's 87th. These are not numbers that Georgia fans are used to.
And I said this yesterday's show, I believe. At this point in the season, there may be slight changes to how good or bad you are, but it ain't going to be significant. You're 6 games into the season. You are who you are. You are who you are.
But you have played some good teams, you know.
You have played good teams.
And I know Clemson in game 1 certainly is not Clemson that they are right now. And Kate Klubnik has grown, taken real strides this season. But you can always, if you're a Georgia fan trying to give yourself confidence, you can always fall back on that game right now and feel good about it. Or the fact that outside of that just crazy beginning, and then the Ryan Williams play in the second half, like you did a good job against a really good Alabama offense.
I think it hurts. I think it hurts Georgia though how bad Alabama's looked the past 2 weeks.
But the offense hasn't looked bad, in my opinion. The offense hasn't looked bad. Remember, we talked about it in Vandy. That's all about Alabama's problem is the defense. Yes. Alabama's problem is absolutely not the offense.
A little bit. Those tackles for Alabama.
I'm not saying it's perfect. No, my bad. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's not. It's not the issue though.
No, I think what the dilemma in this game is we've seen Georgia play really bad, so like we know how bad they can be, and that's worrisome because if that happens, it could get ugly. And we've seen Texas just be perfect, but against no one, so you just don't know. What to bet on.
Not exactly no one. But not exactly no one, but also not like a real test.
Contender.
It's tough to discern. It is interesting that this chart, and this is the same at Football Outsiders breakdown that I think gave Ole Miss like a 67% chance of beating LSU last week. This chart giving the Longhorns a 75% chance of coming away with the win. But let's get into some more traditional stats because again, on paper, Texas looks like the better team. And it's funny because it's kind of like how I said in Alabama. I thought on paper going to the Bama game, Bama appeared a little better, but I was betting on the culture and how long Kirby and company have been on task there to kind of win out over DeBoer in his first year. Well, this is similar, only Texas looks better by a wider margin on paper, and Sark's been there a little longer than DeBoer. So that would maybe both reflect not as good for Georgia here. Texas leads the SEC. And by the way, every stat I give you today, like traditional stats, guys, are all with any FCS games filtered out. So anybody that's not in the FBS, we filtered them out. Texas leads the SEC 43 points a game. They lead the SEC also only giving up 6 points a game. So off the bat, that's pretty absurd, right? Texas is number 2 in the SEC in total yards per game at 495. UGA is 6th at 452. Texas is number 1 in total defense, only allowing 229 a game. And perhaps the most shocking stat you'll see, UGA 10th, allowing 348, about 350 a game right now. Not up to the Bulldog standard. UGA, another thing that shocked me, -1 in turnovers on the year, whereas Texas is +3. Not a huge advantage for either. That's not like crazy number from Texas. I am surprised that a Kirby Smart coach team is negative in the turnover department halfway through the season.
Yep.
That shocks me. You have Texas third in the SEC with 19 sacks. UGA second to last. You filter out FBS, only 8 sacks on the year right now for the Bulldogs. No havoc being created. This is funny. Let me check. Oh, that's
no, I think they have 11 sacks in the year. 11 sacks.
No, take the FCS out of it. That's what I'm saying. I know.
Okay.
See, I fucking told you. That's why I gave you this. Aaron, that's why I gave you
this
disclaimer. Pay attention there. You need to get back in the Torah, study more. This is funny. If you actually filter out FCS games, do you know who's first in the SEC in sacks?
LSU.
Oh, at 21, huh? Oh, they're also first, only giving up 2. How about that? Texas and UGA, both the lines doing a good job, only 6 sacks piece. How about this, though? Again, no havoc for Georgia. Texas, second in the conference, 49 tiffles. Georgia, 26. Texas nearly doubling up Georgia's tiffles. Texas, offensively, a great stat I always look at every single game, third down percentage. Texas first in the SEC, converting 50%. UGA 13th, converting only 38%. So I don't know, Aaron, that you can find you're not going to find a paper or stat-based argument to tell you Georgia's going to win this game.
No.
So
and
it's
in Austin.
And it's in Austin. So what is the path?
I think first path for Georgia to win the football game is you can't turn it over. You can't play from behind in this game because
Did Quinn look rusty to you last week?
He did look rusty.
He did not play great, and they still dominated.
Yeah, but Oklahoma sucks. You knew he didn't play great. He didn't play terrible. Like it was to me a good first game. Knocked the rust off. I haven't played competitive football in 4 weeks. 28-29, 199, 1 touchdown. The pick was ugly. He missed some throws. There's no doubt about it. He missed some throws that we're used to seeing him make. I think you'll get a better Quinn this week. And that was in a neutral site, loud environment. He doesn't play well in that game. He didn't play well to start the game last year against Oklahoma. That was my concern last week. But they're just so much better. I think being at home, you'll get the best Quinn, not dealing with the crowd noise. So
if he plays like he played last week, I think Georgia could absolutely win this game.
100% if he plays the way he played last week. But like Quinn has played great all year besides last week, and last week was still not that bad.
Yeah.
But
if we're because again, you're not going to find the path in the stats. So if you're crafting if you're a Texas fan listening, that should make you feel great because you're like the favorite here. You're at home. You
I'm sorry. Like I'm trying to.
We're putting it together. We know it. One is the hope that Texas indeed maybe hasn't played anyone. I'm using that in quotes, right?
And then Georgia has
a bit overrated.
Georgia has to play. I don't want to say like near perfect football because the rosters are still so similar. Like you don't have to play perfect football, but you can't turn it over. Or the turnover battle has to be equal. If you throw a pick, you better get a fucking pick. Or no turnovers either side. You cannot lose a turnover battle in this game on the road in this environment versus this team and think you're going to win. And Carson has given the ball up a little bit too much this year.
Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers, who's better?
This season, Quinn's better. Quinn's playing better football than Carson is right now. But you put Carson in a Texas uniform, I think we'd be saying the same thing, that Carson is better than Quinn. I think the roster around the roster around yours is significantly better than what Georgia is right now.
And we'll move on from this game in a second, guys. So I think Texas wins here, right? I think I think they appear to be too strong. They're at home. For what it's worth, Sark is kind of he has a bit of a resume as a big game coach. He had Jake Locker in that Washington team take down USC when they were in their prime back in the day, went into Bama last year. You mentioned Michigan. I'm not going to give that quite big game status, But even a couple of years ago, played Bama tooth and nail in Austin when they were way behind them in terms of development and whatnot. So I'm picking Texas to win this game. But the path for UGA, if UGA ends up winning, I think the things we'll be talking about when we get on the other side of it is that UGA was more proven by their schedule. Texas was not. And by extension, they were more tested and had a bit more toughness. That can maybe get Texas into trouble. B, I think it would take, if Quinn Ewers plays like he did last week, I think all of a sudden then the door is wide open for Georgia. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, I guess it would just, how would this shine during the game? I mean, it would almost just be, in my mind, the intangible effect of Kirby Smart having built this program for years now, and Sark still at kind of the beginning of his own empire building. Yeah. Now he's rocketed it forward with major investment, but it still is relatively new compared to how long George has been at this level.
I think Texas wins. I look at Georgia's defense and I have no confidence right now, to be honest. I think Georgia's offense is going to have some success. I think they will be able to put some points on the board, but the way Georgia's looked on defense this year, especially in the secondary, I don't have confidence in that unit. I can't tell you the last time I said heading into a game that Georgia's defense is going to be the reason why they lose a football game. Like, when's the last time we said that? And that is where they are right now defensively. That defense is a liability, and it's been like that for a good majority of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the Clemson game, no, but you lost the line of scrimmage against Kentucky. That's what I'm excited to see is because again, I was really singing Texas offensive line's praises against Michigan. And that's a better Michigan D-line. Do they come out and dominate this game? We'll see. Let's get to some of these super chats before we move on.
Yes. In Oklahoma, I mean, listen, Oklahoma's defense is not bad. I know last week, it's hard to play when your offense isn't doing shit.
Oh,
Texas ran for 177 yards and 6 yards per carry. Like, that's still a good defense. That offensive line, pushed around. I want to look now and gave up.
Look,
one sack.
UGA, you get to play the underdog card. And it's legitimate. I mean, when the fuck's the last time you got to do that? So embrace it. Oh, well, I'd say that was informative and fun. If you agree, please hit the like button, sub, and we'll see you next time for some more snaps.